Hey, it's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you. This is Dr. Jason Johnson and Three Things. It's the day after the election, and there is a lot to say, and a lot to talk about, and a lot to go through. And literally, usually I do one video for like 10 or 12 minutes and I talk about something. I'm actually going to split this into two videos today. So be prepared. So if this is your first time following me, which it probably isn't, we have a huge audience, which has been great, which has been growing. You're going to see about the first minute on Twitter or Blue Sky or Instagram. I ain't never going to call anything other than Twitter because my mom called it Twitter. And then you'll see the whole video on YouTube. So go to YouTube to see the entire video where I do the complete three things. But for these three things that I'm going to talk about right here, right now, and the preview for tomorrow is, number one, the elections on Tuesday. What did we see? What actually matters? What are the parts of the country that you're not paying attention to other than New York, right? So number one, what actually happened? Number two, why did it happen? Number three, what are the places that we're not really paying attention to that we should be paying attention to? So that's the first thing. The second thing is tomorrow morning, I'm going to drop another video because it's the 1 year anniversary of Donald Trump getting elected. And I actually think that's really important for us to talk about. And we haven't been talking about it as much because we've been talking about this election. So we're going to start with the three things right now. And then we're going to go into tomorrow's review. So I'll just say this. For those of you, again, who might be new to this, I'm Dr. Jason Johnson. I am a professor of politics and journalism at Morgan State University, also an analyst at MSNBC, podcaster, Slate, political scientist, travel all over the world. And I'm saying this up front because whenever something political happens, there is a tendency for people to turn it into something that it's not. There's a tendency for people to say it is some massive sea change when it isn't. And so when it is an actual massive sea change, we need to make sure that we're paying attention. What happened on November 4th of 2025 is a sea change. It actually matters. I don't usually do this when I had to take notes on all the different things that happened throughout the country. Let's just do a quick breakdown. You had Abigail Spanberger win the governorship in Virginia as a Democrat, and she won by double digits over Winsome Earl Sears. That is a huge thing. Virginia is a state that Kamala Harris only won by about 6% last time. Not only did Abigail Spanberger win, but Jay Jones, who was in a bit of trouble running for AG, was a black man. He ended up winning as AG. There was a clean sweep when we're talking about Virginia. And Democrats gained 13 additional seats in that state, in the state legislature. So that's huge. Had New Jersey, which looked like it was going to be very close. Mickey Sherrill ends up winning, becoming the first time that you've had, I think, a Democratic governor winning 3 different terms or 3 different times in the state of New Jersey. That's massive. You also had massive mayor's races throughout the country, which I will go into in a bit more detail. You had mayor's races in Seattle. Seattle hasn't been called yet. You had mayor's races in St. Paul. You had mayor races in Atlanta. You had mayor's races in Miami. Miami hasn't been called yet. You have a mayor's race in Cleveland, where Justin Bibb just got reelected with 74% of the vote. A mayor of Cleveland got reelected with 74% of the vote. This is huge. And then, of course, you have ZOHRAN MAMDANI, who is the person who gets the most attention, who defeats Cuomo and gets the highest turnout that any mayoral election has had in the city of New York since 1969. Then we go to, say, Mississippi, where you had 2 additional black state legislators elected, which breaks the supermajority that the Mississippi Republicans had on the state Senate. Then you have public service commissioners, 2 being elected in Georgia in previously Republican seats. So what does all this stuff, combining all this means, right? What happened last night was a total victory for Democrats at almost every single level that was available on the ballot. That's what happened. That is why it's significant. You don't see that happening often, even if it's an off-year election. And in particular, you don't usually see that sort of thing happening with these levels of turnout. You're seeing massive turnout increases. You're seeing areas that had previously gone to Trump flipping to Democratic candidates. You see state representatives and you see governors overperforming Kamala Harris. This is massive. Last night is big. It's significant. That's the first thing. Now, the second thing is, why did any of this happen, right? Like, you can talk about what happened. What happened is huge results, right? Why did any of this happen? Well, it's a couple things. One, Republicans are really not very popular. They haven't been popular for a long time. They usually aren't popular. they end up winning national elections through a combination of voter suppression, Democrats running bad candidates, and Republicans having a sort of unique top of the ticket with Donald Trump, who gets a lot of people's attention. But that's pretty much what it boils down to. Like, Republican policies aren't popular. And the fact that we are on day 35, 36 of a government shutdown, people are losing SNAP and health benefits, people haven't been able to work, we're heading into holiday travel season, and people are seeing massively long lines in New York, massively long lines in Chicago, massively long lines in Atlanta, soon to be long lines in Los Angeles and other places. People are unhappy. And the Democrats, wisely, which is why this happened, decided that they were actually going to run on like really practical policies, right? Which is affordability. Now, the reason I say this is not because everybody needs to say, oh my God, well, they should just run on bread and butter issues. Democrats have run on bread and butter issues for years. Republicans have run on bread and butter issues for years. But what happened this year is that the public decided that that's all that they cared about, right? You had Democrats running on kitchen table issues in 2024, affordability in 2024. But what happened? Republicans are like, trans teenagers in your child's bathroom, DEI. And large numbers of people, especially white voters and some Latinos and white Latino voters, decided that the fear of immigration or trans teenagers or trans boys playing sports, whatever it is, they decided that was more important. They decided that empowering ICE was more important. So let's not pretend that Democrats have tapped into something new and that's why they won this time. What happened this time is the public's level of pain and discomfort was so bad that the message that Democrats had actually broke through, and the public couldn't be distracted by cultural issues that at the end of the day don't really freaking matter, but lots of people like to vote on that kind of stuff because it's more important to them in the short term than what their financial status is. Well, that changes when 22 states, according to Moody's, are now in a recession. So that's the thing. This change happened because Democrats were on message, Republicans are unpopular, the government shutdown has alienated and infuriated a lot of people, and then lastly, Republicans didn't really have much to run on. I mean, they didn't. If you think about it, Donald Trump has been in office since January. What's better? You got plane difficulties, you got the food prices haven't improved in any shape, way, or form. You've got him tearing up half the White House, throwing great Gatsby parties while people are out of work. Like, Donald Trump has not put his party, and it is his party and his party only, he has not put them in a good position to accomplish anything. So the why of this happening is pretty clear. You have one party that is a one-man band. It's extremely unpopular, and lots of people were trying to dance with it and they couldn't anymore. And so that's why you see in cities like New York, where young men and Asian Americans were sort of trending Republican, and they all came back to Mamdani, right? That's where you see in Virginia, where you had a lower turnout amongst African Americans. Now, Abigail Spanberger gets 91% of the vote. Okay? That's what you have to see. This happened because of messaging. Now, the third thing, very simply, what are the lessons that should be taken from this? It ain't what you're going to see on most news programs. I'll be talking about this later on in the week on MSNBC, but it's not what you're going to pick up from most news programs. First and foremost, anybody who you see on YouTube, on Instagram, on television, or anything else like that who tells you Mamdani is the way is wrong. The lesson should not be that the Democratic Party needs more Mamdanis. ZOHRAN MAMDANI is a very New York specific candidate. He would not work in Los Angeles. He would not work in DC. He would not work. ZOHRAN MAMDANI couldn't beat Brandon Scott in Baltimore. Mayors are a reflection of their cities. And that's why I'm talking about mayors more than governors, because I think in some respects they're more interesting. Like, your mayor, he or she had to go to a local high school. Governors don't necessarily have to come from the state, not in the same kind of way. Like, the mayor's got to know where the good sandwich shops are. The mayor's got to be somebody who eats, sleeps, and breathes their city, right? When Mamdani went on with Ari a couple weeks ago and was talking about, or last week, and was talking about, hey, the next time I get a death threat, I'm going to listen to Many Men by 50 Cent. That's not just campaign rhetoric. One, the guy's 33 years old, but two, 50 Cent is New York. Like, I run New York. Like, that's him, right? That's what mayors have to be. So the lesson, lesson number one can't be everybody needs to find a ZOHRAN MAMDANI. The lesson needs to be make sure that your mayors actually matter. And when you have an authoritarian regime that's taken over everything, mayors and governors do become more important. They're your first line of defense against ICE. It makes a difference that in Los Angeles, the police department, as bad as the police department can be in Los Angeles, we're like, no, you can't do ICE raids at Dodgers games. It matters that you have a mayor in Chicago who's like, no, we're not going to let, we won't break the law, but we're not going to let ICE just kidnap people for no reason. We're going to make sure that they have to show badges. We're going to make sure they have to show their faces. So mayors matter, and that's a lesson that should be taken, right? If your energy prices, good gracious, my power bill was insane this last month. If your energy prices have been jacking up over the last year and a half, why do you think that's happening? I don't know, maybe somebody built a data center that's sucking up all sorts of power. That's why public service commissioners in Georgia flipped to Democratic, because people are tired of paying too much for their power bills. And they're realizing now, oh, wait, maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't have anything to do with that. Maybe my local power commissioner. So lesson one, find candidates that matter locally. Lesson two, the people should be learning is your vote carries a lot more power in your local municipal elections than you think. You can scream about what's happening in Washington, D.C., but it's your mayors, it's your governors, it's your state house, it's your state senate. Those people end up making kind of one of the biggest differences. But the last thing I'll say is this about, gosh, it's loud out here. The last thing I'll say is this about what are the lessons that should be learned from this. And I've been having this discussion with a friend of mine for a while. Anybody who's seen me talk has said, seen me say for years that I don't really believe in swing voters. I think swing voters are garbage. They're imaginary people that political pundits like to talk about during election time because it makes it more interesting. They're people who I say have political Baron Munchausen syndrome. They're like, oh my God, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. Please put me on a panel on, some 24-hour cable network so I can talk about what I want to think. No, they're lying. There's no real swing voters. But I'm beginning to change that, and I'm changing that because of what I have seen in Virginia, what I saw in New Jersey, and what I've seen in New York. I don't think they're swing voters. I don't think there's that many people who went from Obama to Trump to Hillary to blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's what it is. But I do think we're heading to a situation now. Good, it's loud out here today. Sorry. I do think we're heading to a situation now where victory in elections is not necessarily about persuading people from one side to the other. It's about persuading people to participate. You win elections by getting infrequent voters to show up, the men and women who don't care, right? You don't get the highest turnout in 50 years in New York just because you had a better argument. You had to convince people who probably have never voted before to actually bother to vote. You don't win an election in Cleveland with 74%. Right? If you are just dealing with the same voters all the time. What we have happening in Seattle was another reminder of this, which is why your local things matter. Bruce Harrell, who is the incumbent mayor of Seattle, he's being challenged by a super left-wing person. He's probably going to beat her, and that's in Seattle, which is a left-wing city, which goes to show this is not about right and left. This is about, hey, can you engage people and make them care enough to come out and vote for you? So that is the lesson. So what are the three things? One, what happened? Massive, massive sweep for Democrats across the board. That's a good thing. Two, why did it happen? Because Donald Trump is unpopular, because he hasn't shown that he can improve anything, and because for once the same messages the Democrats have always had have managed to stick through because cultural issues didn't matter as much. And three, what are the lessons the Democrats or anybody who cares about democracy should learn from this? Number one, try and find local candidates that actually matter. Number two, make sure that you focus on issues that actually matter. Number three, don't go chasing after some fantasy person in another city. Find people who are local. And number four, make sure that local issues actually matter. If you tell me why my vote matters, I'm much more likely to get up and get out and vote. These are three things with Dr. Jason Johnson. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to drop and talk about what's happened in the year since Donald Trump got elected. See you guys. Please like, subscribe, and share.